As the bank run in Greece was occurring, capital controls have been introduced in order to prevent money from fleeing. Today we are going to discuss, is this the beginning of the end? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I have an absolutely jam-packed episode for you today, so I'm going to move through it as quick as I possibly can, get to a few details here. First, we're going to begin with this article out of The Telegraph. Greece has threatened to seek a court injunction against the EU institutions, both to block the country's expulsion from the euro and to halt the asphyxiation of the banking system. So here they're trying to fight back in every way, shape, and form, and they are saying this: the Greek government will make use of all our legal rights. That's the finance minister in Greece saying that. We are taking advice and will certainly consider an injunction at the European Court of Justice. The EU treaties makes no provision for a euro exit, and we refuse to accept it. Our membership is not negotiable. Now, of course, this could be very real and they could actually go through with this. However, we have seen time and time again that the promises are broken of all governments, not because they intend on breaking them, but simply because they are forced into doing so. I'm seeing every country around the world, as they try to basically uphold their campaign promises, undoubtedly fail to do so. Let's see what happens with this scenario here. The Greek economy is not production-based. It's highly reliant on imports of goods and raw materials. In other countries where capital controls of this sort have been put in place, businesses are usually exempted, but not this time. If we can't make electronic remittances, then soon even the most basic goods would not be available. Think Venezuela. As soon as there's a shortage, the people begin lining up. You have riots, you have protests, you have everything that's going on. Civil unrest takes place, and the public is, for the most part, generally unable to deal with it. They begin to freak out. Lots of things happen here, particularly when food cannot be brought in. A lot of people, quite frankly, don't live in rural areas and grow their own food. So you have a shortage of supply within a maximum of 72 hours in most major cities. There's a lot more in this article here. I just want to move on. Look at this out of the Financial Times. Europe's pharmaceuticals industry has warned that drug supplies to Greece could be jeopardized if the country leaves the euro, and called for urgent action from Brussels to help prevent shortages. They are definitely suggesting a lot of the rhetoric here in these articles I'm talking about, as others that I have, and I'm sure you've read yourself, talking about Greece leaving the euro. I don't see it happening right away. If it does happen, this government that has put in place all these since the from the very beginning, when they got in, said, we're not leaving the euro. We do not intend on doing that. So the country, they're obviously saying so. The Troika doesn't want them to leave, that's for sure, but we'll have to see where it all goes. Greece has run up unpaid bills in excess of 1 billion, with drug makers in the industry wrote to the European Commission on Monday to raise alarm over the strains on the country's pharmaceuticals market. Obviously a very big industry. Obviously, healthcare putting a big strain on the economy. This is huge, and we'll see where it all goes. I'm going to move on to this CNBC article. Once there's social unrest, which there will be before too long if this thing continues, no tourist is going to want to go to Greece. If the Greece people understand how limited those concessions that are requested are and contemplate going to the abyss on the other side, they're never going to pick the abyss. What he's suggesting perhaps here is, hey, just give in, let the market continue to rise. We don't have time for this here. It's not such a big deal. The austerity measures, as they are terrible, and if they have to take any more austerity, they're going to be strangled. That's for sure. You can never trust these bankers, these elitists, these technocrats who are all in charge here, telling you that it's going to be okay. Don't worry. Let your government sign on the dot and everything is going to be just fine. We definitely cannot trust them. That's for sure. Let's move on to this here. Tens of thousands of Greeks rallied on Monday to back their left-wing government's rejection of a tough international bailout after a clash with foreign lenders pushed Greece close to the financial chaos and forced a shutdown of its banking system. As I said just right now, basically that we will see civil unrest. We will see the riots take place not just in Greece, but in all countries. And we have seen this happen in various cities around the world as they basically go into a level of poverty that they have been not used to at that moment. With a popular referendum on the bailout plan for Sunday, the Prime Minister put his own position on the line, saying he would respect the result of the vote, but they would not lead a government to administer austerity in perpetuity. So he's saying, look, we're not going to go ahead with this austerity thing forever. We just want to get to the bottom of this, deal with it, and then move on. So I don't know how they're going to get out of this. Personally, they are in an extreme level of debt at this time, and there is really no way that they can get out of it without being pardoned from that debt. But I do not see it heading in that direction. And right here, they're just talking about the referendum. So they have a 72-word question that they have to answer, and basically saying a yes or no. And right here it says, the wording of the referendum may be an early victory for Greece's prime minister, who on Friday urged his citizens to vote no after walking out of bailout talks with Greece's creditors. So this referendum is going to take place this weekend if it all goes according to plan. And what happens here will obviously make a big change in what is occurring in Greece right now. Or will we simply see the can kicking down the road? I think the IMF has missed the opportunity on Greece because it has not fully leveraged the lessons it learned from the previous crisis it was involved in due to the asymmetric relationship with the Troika, and that's according to a former IMF board member. The Troika is there for a reason, not to help out that particular country, the IMF being obviously instrumental in the Troika. And my opinion is that the IMF is there specifically to steal from the nations that they are imposing their will upon. When it was clear that the Greek program was underperforming, they did not push back sufficiently against the Eurozone, which had at the time a misguided policy emphasis only on austerity. Okay, so what they're saying is, look, you just impose austerity and that's the only thing you're going to do, and then that will solve everything, and they're suggesting that, no, that's not what you have to do. But what simply can be done to fix a problem that was created by the bankers in the first place? So yes, the government, I'm sure, has its own issues, fiscal policies that are terrible. Perhaps it's the monetary policies coming from the ECB, and this may have stretched from previous generations even. But does that really, is it able to be solved simply by austerity measures or by cutting pensions? These are all band-aid fixes to real deeper issues that are not being addressed, not by this government, not by the previous government. This government is at least having the rhetoric to say, hey, get out of our country. We don't want you here. I can definitely appreciate that. But nothing in any country that I can see right now is being done to fix any problems. Debt is adding up. And that is really happening right now more than I've ever seen in history. Greece received a $147 billion bailout from the IMF and other countries in Europe. This is from my book, quoting what happened with Greece and the IMF, obviously very relevant here. As you will read in the future chapters, there is contagion in the system. That's the topic of what I want to talk about for this right here, suggesting to you that it is not just Greece that we have to worry about. Look at Spain, look at Italy, look at the other countries that are coming next, because we will see the exact same crises evolving there. It is going on right now, but we are ignoring it simply because Greece is really at the forefront here. But as soon as Greece gets resolved and whatever happens with this, obviously we're going to be looking at Spain and Italy next. We're going to look at Portugal and all of the other nations that are in extreme levels of debt. And when you include the unfunded liabilities, you have such a terrible terrible scenario for the global economy. I have to move on here, running out of time. The shuttered banks of Greece represent a profound failure for the EU. The current crisis is not just a reflection of the failings of the modern Greek state, it is also a failure of the European dream of unity, peace, and prosperity. I'm not going to read the highlighted portion. You can do so for yourself. All I want to say about this is that the EU was presented to the people as some sort of saving grace. Look, if we have an EU, we're not going to fight each other because we'll be united. But we know that there is a deeper reason why the EU was created. That's my opinion. And essentially what I'm seeing here is that they want a technocratic elite to control all of the nations, not for necessarily their own good, but because there are corporations, because there are elite that are really pulling the strings over here, and the fewer and fewer hands you concentrate power, the better off it is for those individuals. They don't want to connect this in with what's happening today as a result of what's happening in Greece. Because I'm not just here to read you the news, I'm here to connect the dots. U.S. stocks plunged nearly 2% or more on Monday, with the Dow and S&P wiping out the gains for the year on escalating tensions between Greece and its creditors. And this individual here, the chief investment officer, said, I think uncertainty around Greece is just making people skittish, and we haven't had a meaningful pullback for some time. It's hard for anybody to fight this uncertainty. So they always want a bull. They always want a reason to invest more and more and more, have their stock buybacks, and have all their scams and schemes to continue. But the truth is that the market is afraid. They want low interest rates, they want QE programs, and they want everything to just be kicked down the road. Not for a week, not even for a month or a year or what have you. They want it for one more trading session. Is today a strong day? Yes, then put the money in. They just want one day of trading. That's the way traders work in most cases. You can talk to them for yourself. You can do your research. It's all about that trading day, not even the trading week, not the month, not the quarter, just the day. Very serious to note that. And of course, China is in the same situation. China's stocks turned into a bear market on Monday as frenzied selling continued in the country's bourses despite Beijing, check this out, central bank slashing interest rates on the weekend in order to calm investors' nerves. So the People's Bank of China cut its one-year lending rate by 25 basis points and lowered its reserve requirements by some commercial banks by 50 basis points. And what happened? The stock market declined. So even though they're relaxing all their lending standards slowly, this has been going on, I've been covering it here, you still have the exact same problems. Look at what's happening in the US, bringing the interest rates down all the way. Yeah, the stock market went up, absolutely. But what happened to the real economy? Well, it failed terribly, still doing so today. Look at what happened in Greece. Pouring money in, just pouring money in. What happens? The money just flows out the other door. You can't control it because the system is set up to continuously go into more debt. I've ranted on enough about that. That's enough for this video. If you found it informative, please give me a thumbs up. I also want your opinion on the Money GPS as a whole. Really interested in that. Please let me know in the comments below, or if you'd prefer, you can do so through my email at david@themoneygps.com. Just interested to hear what you have to say about this video or any video that I do, or the e-course that I'm doing, or things that you want to see, anything. I'm looking for your comments, looking for your criticisms on here as well. Last but not least, if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. And if you actually want to flip through the book, you can do so at Amazon. They have a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the book and see if you like it for yourself. Take care.